and today we talk about radionics and alchemy and the base of both, not just radionics and not just alchemy. If we have already talked about the levels and realms of reality, the different layers, and we begin at the top of everything. So what we see here are two heads. Imagine that they both are just spiritual beings. Two spiritual beings, not human, and they are inside a spiritual realm. They can communicate with each other, and one of them has an idea. So this one you can see, I hope, everyone?
Yes.
Yes? Okay, perfect. Okay. So the man on the left has an idea, and he wants to, and this idea is inside his mind, not is his head, because he's a spiritual being. So he is immaterial, he is non-local, but he has his own mind. So he has an idea, and then he shares this idea with the other one. And you can see the cycles become bigger. And what happens now is that both has almost the same idea. It's because he has communicated it to the other. He interchanged, he transmute. They have both something in common now. And this is what is called reality. So both have one reality right now. And while he transmitted his idea to the other one, the idea is a copy of this idea. So it's not exactly the same, but it is similar. So there is an interchange. There's this kind of interface between these two. And what is interesting is they can use a symbol for the idea. So both can communicate with each other, telling each other, I know your idea, just by using a symbol. Because this is a representation of the idea. The idea can be very complex, but the symbol is very simple. Yeah? And the idea is based on a principle. And this is an aspect I want you to remember. That the principle is higher than the idea. You can have many ideas on the same principle. And the principle normally is something that is timeless. But the idea is not timeless. Idea normally has a beginning. So this is a kind of creation, if you want. From the principle you get an idea, and from the idea you get a symbol, and this symbol can be also be used to communicate with each other. Okay, now we get already something that can be used to identify a transmutation. A principle can be transformed to an idea, and the idea to a symbol. Okay? Now we just continue. What is this idea? In this case, it's indeed phi. This is the symbol of phi, but in Russian, Cyrillic. But it's okay, it's phi. So phi is a principle. It denotes something that has to do with the golden ratio. Maybe you know this, the golden ratio. if you divide a rectangle at a specific point and A and B acts as the entire distance A plus B, then you have the golden rectangle. It has to do with eternity. Okay, now we go lower. Now this one is immaterial, right? A symbol is immaterial, but now it gets a little. Yes?
I didn't quite get that. What did you mention about this golden ratio? A and B is A plus B, but that is normal, right? I mean, isn't it this normal A and B, if we combine it will be A plus B?
Yeah, this is the golden ratio. It's phi. Phi has a specific number, 1.812 or so. You can see it here a lot better. For example, if you divide the rectangle once by the golden ratio, and then again here you take this rectangle and you divide it again with the same ratio, and again and again and again, you can get a Fibonacci spiral, because these are Fibonacci numbers. Fibonacci is always present in nature when you have something to do with energy flow and effective energy processing. So you can see here 1 and 1. 1 plus 1 is 2. 2 plus 1 is 3. 3 plus 2 is 5. 5 plus 3 is 8, and so on. And you get the spiral. And this is connected to the principle of the golden ratio. Maybe you don't know that, Lalita, but this is exactly what is the golden ratio all about.
Thank you. I understood. Thank you for telling me.
Yeah. Okay. It's a mathematical principle. Now, don't focus too much on it. You will. It's just to make a point, to make you understand what this idea is. The idea is something that has to do with a principle, and the principle is then it becomes visible through every layer. Yeah. Now we have here 1, 2, 3, 4. This is the 5th layer. Okay. We just continue. So here we have also something that has to do with a representation of the idea. You can use math to represent an idea, right? Okay, don't concentrate too much about this one, but it has to do with quantum state of particles. I don't understand it. So if I don't understand, don't force your mind to understand it as well. But it's just to make a point, okay? Now, after some time, because we have here a ratio, we have a form of the ratio, of the golden ratio, and now we get to something that looks more like space, okay? So this is, so inside space, there exists the probability of a certain point in relation to another. This is more or less the definition of space. And usually this happens when we go from the spiritual to the physical, to the space. It happens only if you observe it. This is the the basics of quantum physics. So what we can call this layer, where we are right now, is the pre-space. It's not really space right now. So now it becomes space. If humans observe this reality, then it becomes space. This is what we do all the time. We observe the blueprint of what comes from above, and it becomes real for us. You can think about it like this one has an idea, he shared his idea with the other one, and now they have one reality in common. The human being observes what comes from above, and he has a common reality with everyone else. Okay? This may be a little bit difficult to understand. But I will show you more about it.
Yeah.
It is indeed a little bit difficult to understand. Yeah. So we observe reality from below, and we accept reality from above. It's like a streaming of reality. This one is like a streaming. It streams down like a rain of reality. And at a certain point, we have reality. We get our world, our atmosphere, our earth, and so on, matter, space, and so on. Okay? So, and this all generates one universe. This is one universe. And in alchemy, there's a saying that the below is like the above. What is below? Below is the structure, the matter, time and space. And the above is called non-locality, spirit, the truth and eternity. Yeah. So this is a streaming from higher realities down to our reality. So we accept this kind of reality. Okay, now we get a little bit more. We can see here in the background a galaxy. And what happens is that every principle which is eternal, and principle are based on truth, they are streamed down to our reality, and they are visible in nature. They become visible in the biggest structures, and they become visible also in small things like flowers or nature, every kind of structure. And this is something that we need to understand. Memory is not stored inside our brain. It's stored inside the spirit world, and our brain is used to retrieve this kind of memory. It's like a cold scan. If you make a cold scan on a radionic device, what this is exactly, we can talk about it in a later session, but memory is not stored inside the brain. It's like it is received like a streaming. Yeah? You just choose the right channel and you get the memory back from wherever it is. But if we talk about non-locality, we cannot say it's there or it's here. It's not inside the brain. The brain is more like an antenna. Okay. Now we see we have a physical realm. We give every realm now a name. The physical realm is what we perceive most of the time, but exactly between the pre-space and the physical realm there is something which we call etheric realm. Etheric because it is not anymore physical. It is real, but it's not physical. And then on a higher level we have the astral realm, and astral means we have the form which is defined in the astral realm. And on a higher level we have mental realm, and even higher the causal plane. Causal plane is which is the cause of whatever is below. Okay? So when we use acupuncture, we touch the etheric realm. So in alternative therapies, there are many different kind of therapies which use which manipulates the etheric realm, and acupuncture is one of them. So if you have ever asked yourself what is the difference between acupuncture and homeopathy, how it works, it's because homeopathy works on a higher level, on the astral realm, and acupuncture works on the etheric realm. So we go higher on the mental realm, and in between the mental and the astral realm there are spagyrics and Bach flowers. But on the level of mental realms there's radionics. So radionics works on the level where we understand how the idea is represented. So the idea is based on the principle, it flows down, and at some point we understand mentally how it works. And this is where radionics works. But alchemy is on a one step higher. It is on the level where the idea and the simple touches. Exactly there is where we usually study alchemy. We don't study it on a very low base, but on this very high base. Okay? And
Okay.
now, sorry, Inth?
I said okay.
Okay, okay. So, and now we talk about,
Just a question, sir.
yeah,
So when somebody meditates, where are they going when they meditate?
if one
Meditation.
medication, homeopathy or
No, meditation, not medication.
Ah,
but
meditation. Meditation. You go up to you touch every realm normally. If you are an experienced meditator, you go up from etheric, astral, mental, and causal plane. You touch everyone. Yeah.
Thank you.
Yeah. What you do is you recombine every level, even if you don't are aware about it. But meditation is exactly that. You bring all of them together, back together. And when you wake up from meditation, you can tell it. You can say you wake up. Then you you have all bound to the etheric realm, so you still feel it, you still have it very present to you. Yeah. Okay. So the ancient alchemists, I believe, not too ancient. I believe this was how is his name? Paracelsus. Paracelsus. He defined the tria prima, the three elements. It's not really elements. It's like let it read what it says here. The tria prima of alchemy, sulfur, mercury, and saltare, are not just substances, but principles of reality. So they represent the threefold division of all creation and can be clearly mapped onto the metaphysical planes of existence. So let me introduce you one element after another. So the sulfur is not really sulfur like in homeopathy. We have studied sulfur in the beginner course. It's not an element. It's not even an energy of the element. It's a principle of how every other element acts. So it is something that has to do with will, intention, passion, emotion, to be active, expansive, animating, and it links to the desire. So it is not the desire, but it is a link to the desire, to the identity, the soul, spirit, breath of life. Yeah? Sulfur is like that. Now, if we want to map it on all this, we can go here and say the idea, if you have sulfur, you get from the idea to the principle. So if you go high from the idea to the principle, or even from the simple up to the idea and then up to the principle, you have this kind of energy, this which is sulfur. If you go down, salt, it crystallizes, it solidifies, it gives a form, flesh, body, mineral, and the spirit becomes manifest. It's an expression in form. Now we go from the principle to the idea to the simple, down, 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 until we get a form. Now we can see what this simple or this idea is all about, because if you have a mathematical formula, you don't see the form. But when you draw it on a piece of paper, you give it more salt, the energy of salt, then it manifests, then you get the form. Okay? Is this clear? Because this is a bit difficult to understand. It's not so easy to understand, in my opinion. One energy, sulfur, goes up, and salt brings it down and makes it stable. Okay? And then we have mercury, and mercury is not the element mercury, it's an energy, and this mercury, it's a connector between above and below, and mediator. It's like consciousness that reflects and speaks. It's the bridge, the transmitter, the dynamic link. So mercury is what you get after you have meditated. You have meditated, you bring in sulfur, you little man who is meditating on the nature. Here's the little man. He meditates, he looks around and says, oh, the nature is so big, and he meditates on the clouds, on the water, on the moon. He meditates on the sun, the space, and then he goes up. With his sulfur, he begins to understand there is something that is not space and not local, but there is a principle, and he goes up, up, up. He understands the form. He is now inside the astral realm. He goes up, 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 to a point where he understands the idea, and at some point he understands the principle, and at some point, if he goes more up, he understands the truth. Okay? But then he needs to go down, and while he goes down, he forms Mercury, and this Mercury binds the above and the below. And after he has meditated, he is changed. He is not anymore the same person. This is the essence of alchemy. So this going up and then down again, and up and down again. This is like in a laboratory. You have a distillation, but not just a simple form of distillation. You have a very special form of distillation which goes up and down, up and down. You have a circuit which never ends, and at some point the substance changes. Okay? Okay. But the Tria Prima is not everything. There is a little bit more. There are the 4 elements. So let's just understand what is the connection between the Tria Prima and the 4 elements. It's not easy, but just stay with me and you will understand maybe with time. So the 4 elements are emanations or projections of the Tria Prima when they enter the womb of physical creation. We talk about the womb later. So just remember, there is something which is called the womb, or it acts like a womb. Okay? So what is the fire element? These are elements from Hermetics, and the fire is an initiating force. It's will, spirit, illumination and transformation. It seems to be similar to sulfur, and it is indeed, because this is the trigger and this is the result of it. So if you imply sulfur, this is the process of the energy of the consciousness going up, you get fire. And we go down, we have earth. Earth is where it coagulates, it manifests and gives form and structure, and it becomes it gets endurance. So without earth nothing remains, because you can have a lot of fire, but without the earth it will not remain, it will just evaporate. So, and then if you have too much of earth, it will not move. So this is also very bad. Yeah? So you need something which is balanced. And now we have 2 elements in between. We have the water. It seems to be similar to Mercury, and air seems to be also very similar to Mercury, because when we read what air is about, it's the mediator between above and below. It almost sounds like it is Mercury. So we have a mind, a reason, a breath, vibration and communication. And if we go back here, these 2 guys here, if they share one idea, in between them they need Mercury and this kind of air element in order that the idea can be shared in between of them. Okay? And the symbol is a kind of earth element, because now the idea is bound to something which remains. So you can draw a symbol and you understand this symbol points towards the idea. And the water is the sole principle, so it receives. This is important to understand what we have talked about, the womb. It is something that receives. It reflects, it shapes, influences from above. The shapes, influences from above is what we can see, for example, in nature. Yeah? We can see the form is then reflected in the form of the galaxy. Okay? This is the water element. And we have here the memory. So emotions, formative power, the womb in which forms gestate or forms. So the form gets an it becomes visible. I believe if I show you all of this, I'm sure you will not understand everything right now, but with time you will understand, I'm sure. So Leibniz, he used all of this in a drawing. You can see here this kind of drawings are very common in alchemy. So if you study alchemy, you will always encounter some form of drawing, mapping, which shows you how they look upon the worldview. So we can see here ignis, which is fire, and here is aqua, in Latin, water, earth, terra, and aer, which is air. And we see that here we can read contra, because the earth and the air are in contrast, and in contrast is also fire and water, so you cannot combine it. Very interesting what Leibniz wrote about. He was an alchemist, but not laboratory alchemist. He is more the kind of alchemists who meditate and tries to understand how nature works. So he says there are possible combinations and impossible combinations, and reality is combinatorial, but not arbitrary. So arbitrary means you cannot expect that you can combine everything. Order precedes existence. Order precedes existence. We have here order that comes from a principle, and it is reflected back in the galaxy form. The principle in this case is the golden ratio. So you can see then the order becomes manifest. Okay? And really interesting what Leibniz wrote. He says possibility precedes existence. Possibility comes before existence. It's like he talked like quantum probability. This is so interesting. And the prima materia, which is a kind of matter, but not really matter, it's pre-matter. So we have talked about this kind of space, which is not space, it is called pre-space, right? It is called pre-space. It comes before the real space. So there is also the prima materia, a word you will encounter a lot in alchemy study. Prima materia is before matter, and it contains possible forms. Only some can be coagulated. And what is really interesting is nature rejects incompatible marriages. It's like what Leibniz wrote. It's nature rejects incompatible marriages. You cannot put man and man together and expect they get children, or woman and woman, and then expect everything is fine. It doesn't work. So they never enter existence. So there are, for example, in chemistry we know about super heavy radioactive elements. How long do they exist? Just microseconds, some even nanoseconds, and they will not come into existence. They are not able to manifest, they are not able to get the earth element and coagulate and become manifest. So this is something which is very important to understand. Also, he says symbols are not arbitrary and they participate in reality. Is this true? In this case, I use the phi symbol. It symbolizes something. It derives from a principle to an idea to a symbol, and then the symbol is manifested through every layer of reality. It becomes more and more concrete until we can observe it with our naked eyes. And truth, even truth, inside truth, there's a structure, it's ordered. So I made here an example, the set theory in math. You can read about it in Wikipedia or watch some YouTube videos on it. The set theory is very, very interesting regarding this phrase. Truth is structurally ordered. And the great work of alchemy is to discover which combinations are lawful. So, as above, so below, and within, because the below is some form of within. And then it talks about the stone appears where balance is perfected. So what is the stone? Now we talk about the womb. The womb where this tria prima interacts in order to give us something that we can look at. There's still something I need to show you before we get there regarding TCM acupuncture and the 5 elements from the Chinese theory. Maybe if you study alchemy and you study hermetics, fire, air, water, earth, you will recognize that some of that is already exists inside the 5 element theory of the Chinese. And you will wonder how this relates to alchemy. It is a kind of alchemy, but very, very restricted. So the 5 elements shows us that the energy which is bound to the etheric realm has a certain way to transmute. Fire transmute to earth, earth to metal, metal to water, and water to wood, and so on. But this does not work on the entire level, but just inside the etheric realm. So some systems looks like they are derived from alchemy, but indeed they are working just on one realm, on one specific level. So don't be confused because of that. Yeah? Okay. So we have here the womb. And this was for me, myself, a bit difficult to understand in the beginning. I encountered this while studying Chinese inner alchemy. Now the womb, it's also called the field. It's something in between etheric and astral enclosure. So this is a kind of construct. It is a construct which is in between the astral and the etheric, and here is where Mercury circulates. You can imagine that here the Mercury is like water and like air. It's like these two elements, water and air. And here's a circulation. And at some point, salt begins to bound and sulfur acts invisibly, and they are closed in harmony. All four elements becomes in harmony. And they have also different names: matrix, vas, athanor, and so on. They have different names. Matrix means mother, because this is like a womb. It receives energy. And that is the prima materia. Here is the prima materia. In between astral realm and etheric realm, there is the prima materia. And it's like chaos, which receives from above the will of the Father. I say in this case the will from the Father because there are two kinds of energies when we go down. Because when we are up here in the higher realms, there is no female and male. But on lower levels, we have duality. So we get here two different kind of energies, and they need to interact. So there is a projection of the will from the Father, and the prima materia is something that receives this kind of will or projection. It receives it like a semen or a form. But it is not yet materialized. This is something very important to understand. The prima materia is somewhere. It is almost localized, almost, but not materialized. And this is how many people visualize the philosopher's stone or the sorcerer's stone. And I tell you, this is a kind of tulpa. Tulpa is a thought form which is materialized. So it is, and this kind of stone, which is really matter in the end. In the end, it becomes something you can touch. Everyone can see it. Everyone can touch it. It has a weight. It is very heavy. When I read about the philosopher's stone, many wrote that it is indeed very heavy. So it's like you have uranium in your hand or plutonium, something very heavy. And it acts as the strongest catalysator for transmutation. So after one has used this kind of energy binding together the above and the below for a very long time inside this kind of womb, he will get the philosopher's stone at some point. And this is also one of the reasons we don't have success in this kind of work, because we live in a world which is, let's say, too stupid to achieve it, because people waste their time with useless things like TikTok and so on. Okay, now let's talk about radionics, because radionics has something in common with alchemy, like homeopathy has also something in common with alchemy. But let's concentrate on radionics. So we have here this little man. He is an radionics operator. He says, okay, I understand that somewhere very high in the spiritual realm there is a symbol. So what he does, he connects to this symbol and he triggers a flow of energy from the symbol down to a form until he reaches something that is maybe even something that we can call an homeopathic remedy. The homeopathic remedy of a rose, for example, or just the essence of the rose, the energy of a rose. In this case, I just choose one of the plants we have on the planet. But how can he do this? He can meditate and go up to the symbol. He can do this with his mind, or he can choose to use rates. And a rate is nothing else than a numerical representation of what is above. So yeah, we have talked about it about the boosters some people require for their radionics. You don't need a booster if you understand the entire picture, because then you have the booster inside of you. Yeah, this is how it works. Okay, radionics works by getting the link to the higher plane and triggering this flow of energy from above to below. Now the very important question is, why don't we get all the energy from above? Well, there is some kind of blockage. It is called imperfection. We don't have connection to the highest level, to God, to our Creator. Some people even say there is no Creator. So this flow of energy cannot work. And what we do with radionics is to enable to let some of the energy go through these blockages. Now you see, the blockage is like a filter, and you see that the shadow is also projected on the below. So wherever this shadow falls, there is a lack of energy. And human beings are like tulpas, like materialized thought forms, and they require the free flow from the principle to the idea back to what is then materialized to the human being. So we require this kind of energy which comes from above. Yeah. If we use radionics, for example, it's like we enhance this kind of flow of energy so that we get a lot more of this kind of energy. Okay, let's talk a little bit about the book of Dennis William Hawke. He's a modern alchemist, and he wrote this book of the Sorcerer's Stone. He is one of the... I need to correct this, sorry. Now it's better. He wrote this book, and I want to show you some of them. His words. He writes about the alchemist incubator. This is something in the laboratory that looks like maybe a wooden box, and there's maybe some kind of copper for insulating it from different influences. And somewhere in the lab there's a sacred spot, and he will not reveal the spot to others. So the sealed container is kept warm by the fermenting matter within, where the alchemist directed his thoughts and visualization. Inside this, the first matter is exposed to the influences of the alchemist. Okay? Does it make sense, this phrase, for you? So it's like you have a box with a fluid which is fermenting. It's becoming warm because of the fermentation. And the alchemist, he will not reveal this box to anyone, because if someone looks upon it, all is lost. Does it sound to you to something you already know?
Yes, hot bits.
Hot bits, right. True random numbers acts exactly like that. So the true random numbers are like inside the womb, and the true random numbers are like prima materia until they receive the semen, the form, until they are observed. We observe what is not yet space, what is not yet matter, but it becomes matter, it becomes space, it becomes something tangible, but not yet. So whenever we use the ether 1 pi, or any kind of digital radionics which uses true random numbers, we have this kind of construct. Okay? Let's go back to what Dennis wrote. So in the beginning, the subject of the alchemist's work was easily corrupted by another's impure thoughts, which is why the alchemist always kept his work secret, even from other alchemists. So to alchemists, consciousness is a force of nature that can be harnessed and purified through prayer and meditation, and then added to the experiment just like a chemical ingredient. So this is the secret ingredient, is nothing else than consciousness. And this esoteric part of the experiment is absolutely necessary and explains why many alchemical experiments cannot be duplicated in a chemical laboratory. It's just not possible. Okay? Interesting. Modern chemists who believe the experiments take place only on the physical level see no need to purify themselves or meditate prior to beginning an experiment. But to an alchemist, on the other hand, entering a laboratory emotionally upset or focused on one's ego and not the greater universal pattern to be revealed in the experiment destroys the delicate connection with the subtle level of reality on which the alchemist hopes to work. In other words, the alchemist's attitude has a lot to do with the outcome of the experiment, and this is very similar to the observer effect, proven tenet of quantum physics. So in quantum physics, we know you observe, you destroy. You observe and you have another effect than without the observation. Yeah? So the atomic level of reality can be considered more subtle or spiritual than the gross physical level at which we all live. So the below, which is already structured and integrated in matter and time and space, is not as the energy which is on a higher level, because what is above is more subtle. So, and there, like a modern quantum physicist, the alchemist is always looking for the most subtle level of reality, the deepest underlying pattern that explains physical reality. So an alchemist will always get into the deep of reality. He will always try to understand what is really happening. And what is also very interesting is Dennis is one of the alchemists who, most of all other alchemists, he teaches this kind of maps of reality. So if you have ever seen this kind of map, and I was not aware while I was drawing this one that it almost resembles this one. What we have here, we have something above heaven and something below heaven. So we have here the above and the below. And what is interesting is there's a kind of cycle. So everything has a cycle. Everything is interchanged with each other. We have here the tria prima interacting, and then when we go out we see more and more about its manifestations. And when we go down we can see here duality, the male with his sun and the female with the moon, and both at the end forms one element which contains both man and woman in one. And we can see here what comes out is some kind of liquid, which is the mercury, this kind of liquid. Yeah, and we can see here this man, the alchemist, has at his disposal every kind of element. He can use every element to combine them, and the combination is done with the mercury, with this kind of energy.